So I just wanted to fill in some of the omissions from this last video blog. Poor Howard. Well, at least he ain't dead and gone. But he has relegated himself to the equivalent of an electronic exotic dancing establishment. And one of the things that people don't readily see, I think, is that these free speech zones, in actuality, is a way in which the right wing is chipping away at free speech and free expression. I could give you an example. I have a public park 4 or 5 blocks from here. Now, in the First Amendment cases, you'll often see, in fact, you almost always see, a reference to a public place or a public facility where speech is to be protected from interference by the state. Well, in this park down here, when they have a National Socialist rally, you know, a football game with the national anthem and cheerleaders and all of this sort of thing, the loudspeaker is so intense that the noise that the announcer makes pervades every room in my house. So I'm a captive audience in my house. But apparently his speech is protected. So if a person is speaking in a public park and his speech is protected because he's in a public area, how could it become less protected if it's amplified? Because essentially that's what the distinction is between regular speech and broadcast speech. Because broadcast speech is merely speech that's being amplified by a radio broadcast. Well, the chief distinction is that you could turn off the radio, but you can't turn off the park. I can't turn off the football game. I can't call the police and say, the announcer's making too much noise, can you please tell him to tone it down, officer? You know, I'm in here trying to watch a videotape about communism and it's interfering with my leisurely activities. You know, you just can't do that sort of thing. So another example of these zones, which is to be distinguished somewhat from zoning itself, is the idea that smoking is to be prohibited in public places. When this started out, what you had was smoking areas and non-smoking areas. And now in bar rooms in New York State, you just can't smoke inside the bar at all. Even though it's a privately owned facility, the state has come in and said you cannot smoke in here. So, you know, the use of these zones, the innovation of such things, has no apparent limitation. Once you allow this sort of innovation, there's literally no end to it. It's the same idea as taxation. The power to tax is the power to destroy. So if you look at this in terms of exotic dancing, for instance, the dancing is a form of expression, a form of protected expression. But people have decided, and courts have said it's okay, to allow the state to say if you're going to have one of these establishments, you have to blacken out all the windows, you have to keep the doors closed, and so on and so forth. I could remember when it wasn't like that. The first exotic dancing establishment I went to, the door was wide open. I came inside and there was this beautiful copper-colored brown woman that was completely naked except for a G-string, standing in front of the jukebox. picking out tunes that she was going to dance to. And I was fucking high from that. I mean, that was one of the greatest experiences I had. I was underage. I was in a bar. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was drinking beer. Here's this beautiful brown-skinned woman. You know, and eventually that had to be all shut up. You close the door, you blacken the windows. And now bars in New York State have to have small-sized windows. The bars that I used to go to, one of the things that I enjoyed was my favorite bar. The person that ran it used to wash the windows every day. And I used to love to sit at the end of the bar just to look up and down the street. You can't do that anymore. The windows have to be closed. Why? There's no one in here that's doing exotic dancing or anything. What are they doing? They're consuming alcohol. You know, so these public and private issues, in actuality, is a fiction. You know, because you could use the example of your living room. Well, what if some person comes in my living room and starts saying things that I don't want him to say, and I have to force him out of my home, and he doesn't want to leave, and I call the police? It has nothing to do with speech. It has nothing to do with speech at all. It has to do with his behavior. He doesn't want to leave. So I don't know how you could conclude that sort of issue, but I did want to raise it. The other omission that I can recall at the present time was the second way in which the policy at SUNY Binghamton is unconstitutional. And the way that is unconstitutional is that I was first suspended for allegedly broadcasting a phrase, "You're not worth shitting on," at 4 a.m. And I was suspended for 1 year, and when I came back, a new general manager said, well, you have to agree with this written policy. This is a written policy statement. Here it is. It's signed by me, the general manager, and we would like you to agree to it, to sign it. If you refuse to agree to it, you can't broadcast here anymore. And essentially what it was a waiver of my First Amendment rights. It was an agreement to self-censor myself. It was an agreement that, you know, I would say that the safe harbor zone does not exist, that there were certain words that could not be broadcast. Clearly unconstitutional. Again, it was something that the court absolutely, adamantly refused to address. And that policy, in fact, is still in force and enforced by the state at the State University in New York. And what's really strange and funny and, you know, sad too, is this aspect with the press. There's probably professors at SUNY Binghamton right now that are talking about the First Amendment that have no idea that the president of the university, the college board, the Attorney General of New York State, Lord McAfee in the Northern District Court have all agreed to censor speech, that the radio station is censored. No one realizes that. You know, so if you're a person that's watching this video, you would be doing a great service by spreading it around, turning your friends onto it, whether they agree with it or not. I'm going to conclude this segment by saying this, that here is the internet. You have, like anything else, you have an outlet for free speech. You have an outlet for free expression. Yet when I go around cruising the web, what I see are people that are imitating the media. They're doing blogs the way that people write in newspapers. They're doing videos the way that Hollywood makes movies, or even the way that independent people make movies. that aren't really doing it for the fun of making movies per se, or to convey any sort of, higher form of consciousness. They're doing it because they hope someone is going to discover them. And it's like, I'll tell you what that's all about, man. What that's all about is somebody else is already doing it. So, like, there's no money in it if you're doing what somebody else is doing. The people that are making money off of them have them to make money off of. So unless they die or something, you don't have a chance. You know, but what you do have a chance is you could use the internet in any way that you want. You could spread information in any way that you want. You might eventually be banned for it, but before that happens, before the Gestapo comes and intervenes and says, submit to me now, you could reach a lot of people, potentially, you know. This is what you ought to do. I mean, I'd love to discuss it more. If you want to comment on these things, I'll discuss it with anyone if you're serious about doing it. But, if you're just going to say nasty things that don't make any sense, I'm not even going to bother addressing that. But please, if you could pass this on, pass this information on, pass around my web links, so on and so forth, something good will come of it. So for the nonce, until we speak again, see ya.